The 2022 Nitto ATP Finals are here, and we have 8 of the best players set to battle it out in Turin for the coveted year-end title. I'll preview both the red and green groups before giving my prospects before I think we'll take it all here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today. The total prize money pool for the finals is a record $14.75 million, and players can potentially bring home $4.7 million in prize money and earn 1,500 points if they go undefeated in all of their 5 matches. The tournament is a round-robin format with 8 players being split up into 2 groups. The 2 best performing players from each group then advance to the semifinal round, where it then becomes single elimination. World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz would have been the top seed here in the finals, but he'll be sidelined for 6 weeks after sustaining a muscle tear in his left ab. American Taylor Fritz replaces him, being ranked 9th in the race. Now, should there be any injuries here, Paris champ Holger Rune will step in as the first alternate. In the green group, we have Rafael Nadal, Casper Ruud, Felix Auger-Aliassime, and Taylor Fritz. Looking at each player's 2022 season, first starting with Rafa, even though he didn't play a whole lot of tennis, he's still arguably the most accomplished player of the season, winning 2 slams, the Australian and French Opens. Nadal had the best start to the season possible, opening it with a 21-match win streak that was snapped after he fell in the Indian Wells finals when he suffered a stress fracture in his rib. He was still able to get it together in order to win the French, but the Spaniard's calendar slam hopes were shut down after he withdrew from the Wimbledon semifinals due to an abdominal tear. Rafa only played 1 US Open lead-up event where he lost in the first round of Cincy, and then he fell in the 4th round in New York to Francis Tiafoe. Nadal played 1 Laver Cup doubles match with Roger Federer in his send-off match, and then welcomed the birth of his son in early October. The world number 2 played just 1 official match post-US Open, falling in the Paris indoor first round to Tommy Paul. This is Nadal's first finals appearance since 2020, where he lost to eventual champion Daniil Medvedev in the semifinals. Nadal made the championship match twice, but has never been champion. Looking at how Rafa stands up against his fellow group mates, he's played all of them this season, only losing to Fritz in the Indian Wells final. That was actually the only loss that Nadal suffered to a player in the finals field this season. I think Rafa will obviously be very happy with this group, as to me, these 3 players would pose him the least 3 biggest threats overall. I actually think that Ruud will be Nadal's easiest matchup despite him being the 3rd seed in this tournament. They did play in the French Open final where Ruud managed to win just 6 games total. I don't expect this matchup to be as one-sided because the stakes are a bit lower, plus Casper now has some type of experience in playing his idol and on the final stage in general, as he made the semifinals last year. Still, I favor Nadal here as far as the matchup itself goes. Fritz challenged and nearly beat Nadal twice this season, but Rafa was injured in both of their Indian Wells and Wimbledon matches. Felix pushed Rafa a lot in their French Open 4th round match this year, showing that he does have the game to trouble the Spanish great. These players, of course, aren't pushovers by any stretch, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure that Rafa would rather have Ruud, Auger-Aliassime, and Fritz over Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Rublev, and Djokovic, who have more experience at this level. 3rd seed Casper Ruud made some huge moves this season, making 2 major finals at the French and US Opens. He also continued his vulturing tendencies, taking home 3 250 titles. Casper had a decent 48-20 win-loss record and raked in $4.7 million in prize money, large in part due to those deep slam runs. Those runs also propelled the Norwegian to a career-high ranking of number 2 in the world. Unlike Rafa, Casper has played quite a few tournaments since New York, but has struggled since, going 2-5 in his 4 events. This is Casper's 2nd straight finals appearance as he reached the Final 4 in 2021. Ruud hasn't played a lot of players within the green group and really the top 8 overall here, as he went 2-3 against the finals field in 2022. Casper is going to be my weakest link here in this section, primarily because of his lack of form and confidence heading into Turin. I am afraid that he's worn out from all the tournaments he's played this year, but he can take solace in knowing that he has a solid shot against pretty much all the guys here. Nadal himself isn't at his best. Ruud beat Felix 1-2 in Canada this season, and then that Fritz match is definitely winnable. We will need to see a different Casper here in Turin though if he wants to make it out the group stage once more. 5th seed Felix Auger-Aliassime has had a very interesting up and down season, but has seemingly come into his own during the indoor swing. The Canadian won 3 of his 4 titles this past month alone, going on a 16-match win streak in the process. The Laver Cup was the catalyst to this superb fall, I feel, as there Felix beat Novak Djokovic in straight sets, helping Team World claim their first title. Since then, Auger-Aliassime went 16-2, with the streak only being snapped at the Paris indoor semifinals, where he lost to Holger Rune. I think that loss had more to do with fatigue, which is a concern I have for Felix in this tournament. Does he have enough in the tank to go deep? Focusing exclusively on the finals right now, this is Felix's first time making this prestigious Elite 8. He does have a losing head-to-head against the other guys in this group, but this is the new Felix we're seeing as of late, and I feel like he's nearly coming to his own at this point, as I mentioned earlier. The big thing for him is consistently getting those key wins over the top players, and this tournament gives him the opportunity to tackle such challenge. I am concerned about whether the occasion of the finals itself will be too much for Felix, because he really hasn't played a lot of big stage matches throughout his career. Auger-Aliassime has never even made a 1000 final or higher, and I think the biggest match he's played thus far is when he made the US Open semifinals last year. We'll see if the Canadian's willing to rise to the occasion and make that next step in becoming a champion. 8th seed Taylor Fritz had his best season thus far, holding a 43-19 win-loss record and claiming 3 titles, including a 1000 at Indian Wells. Taylor also made his first Slam quarterfinal at Wimbledon, which unfortunately for him did not award points. Despite not making it past the second round at the French or US Opens, Fritz managed to attain a career high ranking of 8th in the world. The Americans had a pretty decent fall season, going 7-2, winning the Tokyo 500 along the way. Taylor is making his finals debut here in Turin and actually holds a decent 4-2 win-loss record against the field in 2022. I think Taylor could be a very serious threat here. He has the potential to beat all 3 players within the green group, and he seemingly performs better against the top players on the big stages. I feel like he's more prepared for this occasion than Felix, for example, as he has that experience and confidence from winning a big title like in Indian Wells. The indoor conditions should also favor the American, whose serve will be even more effective in Turin. With all this being said, we won't know how Taylor will handle the occasion, as the mental factor could be bigger than the tactical or the physical one. For my green group prediction, I have Rafa and Felix advancing to the knockout round, with both holding 2-1 win-loss records. I believe Nadal's loss will come to Felix, and then I see Auger-Aliassime falling to Ruud. Speaking of which, I have Casper and Taylor both going 1-2, with Fritz's lone win coming against Casper. In all honesty, I'm not very confident with these picks because this is such a wide open section to me. Nadal has no solid form and is a big question mark health-wise. The Spaniard recently revealed that he tore his abdomen a week before the US Open this year, like how he did at Wimbledon, and he subsequently couldn't compete like how he wanted to. I still have faith that his experience and overall level will be high enough to at least get him through the group stage. Casper Ruud also has very little momentum coming into the tournament, but one good win here could turn it around. He does have the game to beat the players in this section, literally all 4 guys do, which makes this so difficult to predict. I will stick with Felix in hopes that he'll continue his high level into Turin. Moving on to the red group, we have Stefanos Tsitsipas, Daniil Medvedev, Andrey Rublev, and Novak Djokovic. First, looking at the second-seeded Tsitsipas, the Greekman had a solid season, going 60-22 and earning $4.7 million in prize money. He will be disappointed that he didn't do the best in the majors, but he was able to defend his Monte Carlo title this year. He also made the Rome and Cincinnati finals and did well in the tournaments post-US Open. The Greekman made the finals in Astana and Stockholm before losing 7-6 in the third to Djokovic in the Paris semifinals. This is Stefanos' 4th consecutive finals appearance, and he is a former champion, taking the crown back in 2019. He doesn't have the best record against his fellow players here, with Medvedev and Djokovic being his biggest threats. Tsitsipas has been making big improvements, actually beating Medvedev in their last meeting at Cincy this year. Then of course he was points away from taking out Novak last week in Paris. Stefanos won't really have an opportunity to work himself into form this tournament, playing Novak right off the bat. I think the Serb will be Steph's biggest threat, as he's lost 8 straight to the 21-time Slam champ. I think Tsitsipas has a decent shot against Daniil Medvedev, who hasn't played his best tennis pretty much all season. And then Steph won his last 2 matches against Andrey Rublev. Based on form, I'd actually rank Stefanos second behind Novak out of the 4 players in this red group. Daniil Medvedev admittedly hasn't had his greatest year on tour, but it's still been good nonetheless, and he's earned 2 titles. He came ever so close to winning his second major title at the Australian Open, but could not close out Nadal. Thus far, it's been the first season since 2018 where Daniil hasn't won a title 1000 level or higher. The world number 5 did miss nearly 2 months of competitive play midway through the season due to hernia surgery. Medvedev has had an odd post-US Open swing as he lost first rounds in the 2 tournaments he played in France. He then made the Astana semifinals and nearly beat Novak Djokovic before withdrawing midway due to an adductor injury. Medvedev then welcomed a baby girl about a week later before winning the Vienna 500 title. Daniil has performed well in the finals, especially the past few seasons. He won in 2020 and then came runner-up last year. Medvedev has strong head-to-head records against Tsitsipas and Rublev, and his record versus Novak isn't that bad either. Now, unlike previous years, Daniil hasn't performed the best against top players, holding a 3-4 record against the other 7 men here this season. I feel like he's a little bit overlooked right now, understandably so, as the results have been pretty inconsistent lately. I do have faith that Daniil will rise to this occasion and finish off the season on a high. Moving on to Andrey Rublev, he's had a very Rublev-like season. He's done a solid job in winning a lot of the matches that he should have and has done well in a few majors this year, making the quarterfinals of New York and Paris. He's also added 4 new titles to his trophy case, but none still higher than the 500 level. Andrey's done fairly well in the fall season, winning a 250 in Spain before making the semifinals of the Astana 500. This is Andrey's 3rd straight finals appearance, and he's yet to make it out of the round-robin stage. He is the weakest link out of all the players and doesn't have a strong win-loss record against other finals players overall. However, he is one of those guys that can take advantage of an opponent's dip in level. His big first ball striking game should also mesh well with the quicker indoor conditions too. Last but certainly not least is Novak Djokovic, who's had a tumultuous 2022 season. Despite not playing 2 out of the 4 slams, Djokovic is still ranked 8th in the world, winning 4 titles including Wimbledon. He underwent a near 3-month hiatus after SW19, but seemingly picked up right where he left off, winning back-to-back titles in Tel Aviv and Astana. He also reached the Paris indoors final, barely losing to Danish teen sensation Holger Rune 7-5 in the 3rd. Novak's won the finals 5 times in his career, but he hasn't won it since 2015. Still, he's made it out of the group stage in the past 3 years, but just hasn't managed to get by that semifinal round. This section honestly is not the best for Novak, but to me, he still is the best player in this entire tournament at the moment, so I think that he's the favorite to make it through the semifinals once more. I think he should handle Tsitsipas fairly well, and I think that him getting pushed by the Greekman in Paris will only help him here. I think the biggest threat to Novak is Daniil, as the 4th seed came very close to beating him at Astana before he got injured. Going to my predictions, I have Daniil and Novak advancing to the semifinal stage, with both men ending up with a 2-1 record. I pick Rublev and Tsitsipas both going 1-2. I think Medvedev will beat Novak should they play, as he came very close to doing so at Astana. Plus, I feel like he's overdue for a Djokovic win. I have Stefanos though beating him, as I feel like the Russian will be a bit more vulnerable in the latter stages of the round-robin play when they ultimately meet. I believe Rublev will get his lone win over Stefanos, because even though he's lost to the Greekmen in their last 2 affairs, those matches have been close. Rublev actually beat Tsitsipas in the round-robin stage last year in Turin and in straight sets, so he's definitely capable of getting the W. I know some people might be surprised that I'm not having Stefanos advance with how well he's been playing recently, but I just think this section in particular is extremely tough, and I was honestly close to having him go 0-3. I will be somewhat surprised if Novak didn't make it out, but not really shocked, because these other 3 guys can all beat him if he isn't on his game. This red group is definitely going to get all my undivided attention in these forthcoming days. In the semifinals, I have Felix Auger-Aliassime and Novak Djokovic facing, with Novak winning, and then Nadal and Medvedev, with Daniil once again reaching the finals. Then I picked Djokovic once again to take it. I feel like all of this is rather self-explanatory, especially Novak taking it all. As I mentioned earlier, he is in the best form out of everyone, and he's the one guy I'm most confident in even making it out of the group stage. On the other hand, I really wouldn't be surprised if Nadal didn't make it out of the group stage due to potential injury concerns. I can see any two players out of that green group advancing. Predictions aside, there is more on the line for our top seeds Nadal and Tsitsipas aside from the championship trophy. Nadal, who currently holds a 500-point advantage over Steph, would overtake Carlos Alcaraz as number 1 should he win the title. Rafa would also be the year-end world number 1 should he reach the final, and if Tsitsipas isn't an undefeated champion. Basically, Stefanos' only chance to be world number 1 is if he goes the entire tournament undefeated and wins the title, which is very unlikely, but possible nonetheless. Chances are Carlitos will retain his world number 1 ranking for the end of the year, as I don't have Rafa making it through to the finals, but the Spaniard could very well make that one final big push to close out the year on a high. That's it for my ATP Finals preview, and let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with me having Novak taking it all. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post updates of the finals action. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.